Sounds fancy.
Hello, welcome everyone to Dragon Tail Books and our second to last environmental series program. So today we have Brianna Capra, and so she's going to talk about sustainability in everyday life, right? Going past Earth Day. All right, so welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. So one of the reasons I'm really here is to talk about my book, Just Say No to Plastic.
Which I'm not doing right now.
Well, we'll get
Is
to
it a
that.
clamshell?
We'll get to the choices we make. I really wrote this book because I've kind of been an environmentalist my whole life. Just growing up on the edge of a wilderness, I feel like that really affected me profoundly. And my parents are environmentalists, so I kind of grew up in that environmental bubble. And when I was a young adult, I kind of got into Earth First. This is a radical environmentalist group. These are the people that chain themselves to bulldozers and stuff to keep logging from happening. But I kind of decided civil disobedience wasn't really my thing. And I realized I had this ability to draw. And so I started to use that, making little stickers, little flyers that I could kind of send out into the wild with that message. And so now years later, I started thinking really about, of all the environmental topics I feel like I can easily address, plastics is at the top of the list. And I thought, well, why don't I use my illustration skills to make a book about plastic? Well, first of all, making something the size, a graphic novel or graphic nonfiction takes years of writing and drawing, and years of research went into it because plastic is this constantly, ever-changing, ever-evolving topic. So a lot of my research was done, trying to find the most relevant sources, whatever was most recent. Anyway, I went to grad school here at Stout and came out with this book. So I'd like to read some from it, and then feel free to ask questions along the way, but then I'll open it up. So I'd like to start with how we got here in the first place with plastics. And after I talk about plastics, we can open up into other realms of sustainability. So first of all, about plastics. Throughout human history, many materials have been used, which had a similar use and feel as modern-day plastics. Materials such as ivory hoof, tortoise shell, rubber, and shellac are natural polymers and have a similar look and feel to some modern plastics. Natural polymers had many irregularities. They were difficult to work with and obtain, not to mention totally unethical. In the 1800s, the game of billiards or pool was very popular. Pool balls were made of elephant ivory, and only 3 balls could be made from each tusk. That's 6 balls per elephant. Classic American pool uses 16 balls. So go ahead and do the math on how many elephants had to die for a set of pool balls. You don't have to do the math. I'll tell you. It's 3 elephants. So luckily, the invention of plastics saved the elephants. And people really got going on that. They started to realize, if we don't find some other way to make pool balls, we're going to lose all of our elephants. Luckily, they cared enough. And so they sent out a contest in 1869 offering $10,000 to invent a substitute material for ivory pool balls. That's $3 million today. All these inventors sort of started coming up with different materials to make pool balls. Some of them were not that successful. Some of them spontaneously combusted, but eventually people figured out how to make plastic pool balls. So as plastic evolved, different materials were created. Now, during World War II, that's when really things started to take off. Plastics were essential for use in things like aircraft parts, helmet liners, parachutes, and some of the need for plastic manufacturing was also because metals were necessary for military use and unavailable to the public. So the military actually is what increased plastic production by millions of pounds from 213 million pounds in 1939 to 818 million pounds in 1945. So it really went up. And then after the war ended, there was a high demand for consumer goods following years of austerity. And now there were all these plastic production facilities. So these plastic production facilities were like, we want to keep making plastic. Let's market it to the public. Plastic's ability to take any shape and come in a rainbow of colors made it an attention getter, and people were hooked. So the demand for plastic was to make a sturdy, inexpensive, easily fabricated, lightweight, and durable material that would become a household necessity. Marketing for durability was soon replaced by marketing for disposability in many plastic products. People were deliberately enticed to adopt a new throwaway culture, and it was embraced as the way of the future. And I have this little character who I love. I call him my conspiracy cat. Conspiracy cat is here so that I can say whatever I want and not get in trouble with Monsanto and DuPont and Coca-Cola. That's my theory. We'll see how far it takes me. So Conspiracy Cat says, it was like a capitalist conspiracy, man, you know? If you make something and tell people to buy it and throw it away, they'll have to buy it again and again and throw it away every time. That's twisted, man. And it is. I mean, think about that. They have this material that was initially created because it was so durable and could last forever. And then they were like, oh, but if it lasts forever, we can't sell more. Let's have people throw it away instead. But as we all know, there is no way. So now modern plastics are really complicated. There's as the demand for more things made out of plastic has increased, so has the variety of plastic material, and each material requires a different chemical to create a desired product. There's softeners, there's colorants, there's scented plastic, there's microban plastic, and all of these different additives make plastic recycling the nightmare that it is. So here we have our little resin code, right? And in this resin code, you know, everything has this lovely little triangle of chasing arrows. Just because it has the chasing arrows does not mean that it's actually recyclable. You get down to number 7 here, almost nothing that's a number 7 is going to be recycled. Around here in the rural areas of this country, you can recycle 1 and 2. You're not really going to be able to recycle anything else. And you can't recycle a number 1 clamshell. Now, I've heard people say that GFL is taking number 5s.
Yes, they are, but they're throwing them away.
Exactly. Yeah, they will. Yes. At the greenhouse that I work at now, they're like, oh, we recycle every single plastic. And I'm like, well, you're putting it in your recycling dumpster. Yeah, but it's just going into the landfill, except for the 1s and 2s. So there are other opportunities, though. So we don't have the infrastructure out here, and there's not a buyer usually for those. Now, if you go to Minneapolis, Hennepin County, they are recycling those clamshells, and they are recycling those number 5s. So I take all my stuff to my kid who lives in St. Paul, and I put it in his bin. Because it will actually get recycled there. So sometimes we just have to take that extra step. Also, greenhouse plastic can be taken to a Lowe's or a Home Depot. I'm trying to get the greenhouse that I work with currently to be able to take back their plastics. There's like a whole recycling program. But you can't throw it in your bin because the mechanical eye that reads that plastic won't be able to see it. And so it's going to go into the landfill. So anyway, there's all of that. So just to open it up, Does anybody have questions about plastic recycling? If you want to think about it.
Because the number is the type of plastic.
Yes.
And
Yep.
like ones can be different, right? It's the
Yeah.
same plastic content, but it's how it's made that
Yeah. And that's a really good point.
recyclability, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's why the clamshells are not recyclable, because they're actually what's called a thermoset. So they cannot be, what is that? The difference between, okay, so a thermoplast is like your number one bottle. That can be ground up, melted down, made into something else. A thermoset have sometimes multiple layers, and some thermosets, like polystyrene or foam, they're set in that shape. They can't be changed. So the clamshells are a thermoset. There's multiple layers, and they can't really be changed. So that is, even though they have the little one, they're going into the landfill. Unless you're in a big city.
I always wondered why we went away from, especially with soda being so popular. I know we try and get away from it, our healthy food, whatever, but why we went away from the glass soda bottles
They're
to
really
plastic.
heavy. Yeah.
Is it that more cost effective to generate new plastic bottles?
Yes, actually it is. And why don't I'll pop forward to that. Okay, so plastic is easy to manufacture and it's cheap. So I actually have this answer right here. It is 0.6 cents to make a plastic bottle, and it is 35 cents to make a glass bottle.
And what about cleaning that glass bottle and rebottling it in the future?
Yeah.
Because then you don't have that 35 cents every time.
Right, and that would be the ideal. Like Leinenkugels used to do that with the case of beer. Crystal, is it still Crystal? No. Who's got the glass milk bottles at the co-op? Is it Crystal? Okay, yeah. So we always get the glass milk bottles. They take them back.
Yeah.
You get like a $2 refund. When I was in school in Scotland, I always love to tell people this story. There was this soda there. It's called Iron Brew. I'm sure they still make it. It is massively... Scotland is the only country in the modern world that Coca-Cola and Pepsi are not the number one selling beverage, because Iron Brew is. I'm a proud Scot, so I just think that's amazing. And those bottles, you'd buy one for £1, so like $1, and your bottle return was 20p. Like 20 cents. And so then when you bring your return back, you get that back, and then, I'd save them up and get a free soda. Yeah. So they were using them and reusing them. It can be done. There just has to be the infrastructure for it. The United States is a huge country. They want to sell everything worldwide, so it really comes down to capitalism.
There are some states where you can return stuff. Right. So it's been legislated on a state-by-state level. Okay. In Oregon, you can still buy your groceries by having beer parties. Not that I know that out of experience. Or
a lot of places got rid of their bottle washers, and so that's why the returns stopped happening. Because once plastic came, then a lot of them sold those off, and so then it's like, okay, so then it would cost all that equipment to go back. But I remember we had tons and tons of bottles just sitting, waiting to go back.
Oh yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons too. So there's that, and also glass is very heavy. So even for like non-returnables, but just recyclable glass. One of the arguments people use for moving to plastic is that glass is very heavy. So not only is it more expensive to produce, it's more expensive to transport. Then you have breakage. And so there were all of those things. So what I always tell people is the very best solution to all of this is buy less and buy local. If we had more locality to these, we wouldn't have to worry about the shipping as much. You know, like the milk we buy from the co-op. You can't buy that milk in California.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
You have your own dairy in California. So that's kind of the model, though, that like really the bigger picture needs to move to. So anyway, and that got us into some of the problems with plastic, really, is that is the biggest problem, is that it's too easy, too convenient to use, and it's too easy to throw away. Another problem, obviously, is it's made out of fossil fuels. So we're extracting a resource, a finite resource from the earth, not just to make bottles, but to make crap, like unnecessary crap, you know, that people use once and throw away. Or I was at Earthfest over the weekend, and Earthfest, guys, was giving away swag. People were walking around with little tiny flashlights in a little plastic wrapper. And those are the things that we need to stop for sure. So another problem is plastic waste is not managed well. So here we have all of this stuff, and like with the recycling, we don't have the infrastructure to take care of all of it. So it goes into a landfill, where if it stays in the landfill, it kind of disrupts the process of biodegradation. What's the word? Biodegradation. Yeah. Okay, it sounded wrong when it came out of my mouth. Because plastic doesn't break down, it can create this anaerobic environment. And so those microbes that need to break everything down get kind of stuck. And landfills are really a big problem then, because all that, so the plastics, they pull toxins toward them as they break down into smaller and smaller particles, and then that mixes with rainwater, because a landfill, if you think about that, is a hole, and it's got this like this plastic liner and then a clay layer, and there's a tubing that's supposed to take that, it's called leachate, it's supposed to take that out of there. It's literally toxic sludge, but sometimes they don't always hold up. So these are some of the problems with, if the plastic wasn't in there, some of that would be alleviated. That's not to say plastic's the only problem. Paper creates a big problem in a landfill as well, because as it rots, it releases methane. Yeah, it's good times, you guys. So one of the other problems is that plastic will escape from the landfill, or it's just thrown onto the ground, and so it gets into our waterways. And that, you know, I'm sure everybody by now has heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in one of the big ocean gyres. I think it's the North Pacific, the South Pacific? But there are 5 ocean gyres, and they all have plastic patches. And the thing is, it's not like big chunks of plastic. It's tiny plastic, microplastic soup, and it's really hard to get it out of there. Again, because plastic doesn't break down, it breaks up into tiny little pieces. And a lot of the ways that the plastic is actually getting into the oceans are through rivers. Plastic gets dropped into the rivers or purposefully dumped into the rivers, and that is really how it gets there. So here we have the Red Cedar River. Anything that inadvertently blows into there could be eaten by wildlife or make it to eventually the Mississippi and the ocean. Another problem is pollution on land. Of course, we see litter, and this is a lot of, you know, wildlife really pays the price with the pollution on land, other than the fact that it's completely ugly. Like I said, there's no microbes that eat plastic. In the normal cycle of decomposition and regeneration, microbes break down different compounds. Now, in my research on this book, I did come across, there's certain bacteria that have been found to eat plastics, so there is some research on that. And there's a worm called wax worms that will eat plastic, but they also eat beeswax. So if they got out of control, there's always this like, oh, here's a solution for our like problem, just so we, so we can consume more. Let's have this other solution. No, we have to quit consuming so much. Problem 7, plastic production contributes to climate change. Again, it's made out of fossil fuels. I won't go on and on about all of these. And finally, the plastic in our bodies. Some of this is that we have this a bioaccumulation. Everybody's heard about microplastics, and what that does is they're finding like all of us has like a credit card worth of plastic in our bodies, even if we've tried to be really, really careful. And I even say, maybe you don't eat seafood or fast food or plastic chunks. Sorry, you're not special. Plastic chemicals can get into food other ways. Dust contains microplastics as they shed from our synthetic clothes and furniture. So there's a lot of different ways. Now, enough talking about the problems, because a point that really comes up a lot is we didn't do this. We didn't choose to have all of this plastic stuff foisted upon us. It is now ubiquitous. It is everywhere, and it really should be on the producers and on the government to be taking care of it, but they're not, and they're not going to. So it has to come down to us. And this is where I like to say, we can find a balance. So deciding to embrace a more sustainable lifestyle means making some life changes. And what are your own reasons? What can you do or not do? Everybody has their own story and needs. Maybe you're concerned about your health and want to avoid eating out of plastic containers. Perhaps you're worried about climate change and want to quit plastic and become an environmental activist. Or maybe you just think plastic is really ugly and you need some resources for finding attractive plastic-free alternatives. I personally started with ugly and really learned too much. And you know what? I am never going to give up on chips, and they come in a plastic bag. So that's kind of my thing. That's okay. I can read. So when you think about that, we've heard of the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. I have 5 R's in my book. There's start by refusing. Say no. Just refuse. You don't need to take it. When you go to the restaurant, tell them if they're going to bring you water, say, I don't want a straw. A lot of people just automatically plunk a plastic straw in there, and most of us are adults and can drink out of a cup. I have a friend who has very sensitive teeth, and so she brings a straw with her. So and before I had that conversation with her, I was like, any adult can just drink out of a cup. And I was like, actually, there's an application for that straw. So, reduce. So think about what you really need or do not need in your life. You don't have to, I need chips. So.
But there's some place that you can send them the chip bags in to recycle.
We can get to that.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
And then reuse, like what plastic items do you already have and how can you reuse or repurpose them? So I wash all of my Ziploc bags endlessly until they are finally no longer useful, and then I recycle them. And that makes me feel better about the chip bags. So then recycle. You got to know your materials and talk to your local recycling facilities to find out exactly which plastics they can recycle. You really do have to make this phone call. Figure out who takes your recycling, talk to them, actually. And if they say, oh yeah, we recycle all of them, say, do you really? Where's it going? Where's it going? I want to know where the sorting actually happens. I had to really track this stuff down when I was in grad school, and one of my assignments was to track down where that went. It was for my sustainability certificate, and it took me some digging. people don't really want to tell you. Oh yeah, we take number 5. And then I was like, can you tell me where that goes? And then I had to go to that place and then to that place. So,
you can't recycle black plastic.
Can't recycle black.
Interesting. I'm like, why? It has a number.
Yeah.
What's the color in it then?
Yeah, it's not seen by the electric eye. Yeah, there's like a whole, materials recycling facilities have like all this fancy robot stuff, and that just goes right through.
Even though it could be recycled. It's just because it's color.
It absolutely can be recycled, and it is always made out of recycled plastic. That black stuff, that's like the end of the line stuff. So that is a recycled product, but the thing is, you can't recycle it curbside. You can't. It just can't. It has to be specially recycled. And there's a company called East Jordan Plastics. They take all that stuff and they turn it into new garden plastic. I know this because I've worked in greenhouses and I have hunted it down. Okay. So you can take your garden plastics to Home Depot and Lowe's, and again, it's always worth calling ahead to let them know that you're bringing it, to ask them where to drop it off. Chances are no one will know, and you have to like really be dogged about this, because not everybody who works at these places is educated on where these things exist. So, oh, and the final R is reimagine. Imagine your life without plastic or with less plastic. What kind of beautiful, natural, renewable materials can you use in place of plastic? There's a whole lot of stuff out there.
You could add a 6th one for rotting. So
Rotting.
Compost.
Yes.
For food waste, like
have a word search here. There's multiple R's. There's restoration. I already said those. Resolve. Rat. We can give it to rats. No, I just have a lot of rats in the book, so I had to throw rat in there. I like rats. Okay. So I have in here a plastic audit. Because it's an activity book, right? Chances are, if you're really doing an audit of all the plastics that you have in your house, you're going to need a notebook. Because there's, you know, if you go from room to room, especially in your kitchen, in your bathroom, there's a lot of plastics that you're going to find. And what the audit helps with is that you can see some of those things like, yeah, I need that. I don't need that. This is a durable good. It's going to last a long time. This is going to get thrown away. Can I find a different material? And a lot of that stuff that we don't need is what is considered single use. So the single use plastics, I have a whole thing about swag, like I was talking about at EarthFest. Say no to swag. You can, your dentist is going to give you a lot of swag. I know that seems really well-meaning, like, here, take care of your teeth. Well, no thanks, I already have a toothbrush, and my toothbrush is made out of recycled plastic. So that's the toothbrush that I would rather use. My dental floss, I buy it from the refillery, and it's made out of bamboo, and it composts, and it comes in a cute little glass tube, and I feel super special every time I use it. I don't want the crappy stuff that the dentist gives me. I have really nice stuff. So that's like a swag that we all get every time we go to the dentist. They want to give us all this stuff. And you can say no thanks. So
can I just point out that when you go to a library conference, the swag is books. So
see, that's good swag.
Right.
That is really good swag. Not all swag is bad swag.
Right.
So that is a really useful thing to bring up. Not all swag is bad swag. So yeah, good point. I call this the big 5. So these are the 5 single-use plastics that we can all avoid. You got your bags, cups and lids, drinking straws, stir sticks. I've seen stir sticks really phased out. Most of them are like wood or bamboo these days. Bottles and cutlery, plastic cutlery. There are now better options for all of these things. And bring your own stuff. have a little collection. If every single person has their own water bottle, their own travel mug, their own little cutlery set, mine is bamboo and it comes in a little recycled nylon pouch, you could literally just take a cutlery set from your drawer and wrap it up in a cloth napkin and away you go. I also use cotton produce bags that I'll use for bulk items as well, like beans and rice. Have a shopping bag, a shopping basket. And then if you need a drinking straw, if you're a person who needs a straw, they sell glass ones, stainless steel. I would never trust myself with glass, but like stainless steel. So these options are out there and they're affordable and everybody, it's pretty easy to take those things. I use a basket and then I just throw everything in it and I don't have to think. It's my brain in a basket. All my stuff is in there and a whole bunch of other stuff I probably don't need and some dirt and rubber bands and it's fine. So, packaging. The best packaging is no packaging. Fruits and vegetables and bulk items. You know, when the food co-op started 100 years ago, we just brought our stuff in. It was a bucket store, and we just brought our stuff in, and we weighed it, and we filled it up, and that was it. I'm not seeing as much of that here anymore, and in fact, they have prepackaged bulk items, and that seems like an oxymoron to me.
In clamshells.
In clamshells. I've had kind arguments with Crystal Halverson about this, where I was told ultimately our bottom line is that we want to entice the non-co-op shopper to come and buy here. And no diss to them at all. I understand their business and they have to work in a certain way, but my response was, well, but I'm the co-op shopper that has kept you in business for 40 years. Don't you think that you should maybe cater to me and not have everything in clamshells? So anyway, it's a long running problem, and like their deli stuff is in the clamshells too, and I want to eat it. I really want to eat it, but I won't. You know, I just won't because it has that. Now I have
your own for like some of the deli stuff.
I reckon that at the
No.
food co-op you
Oh, you
could.
can't.
You can't.
It's against health regulations.
I was thinking, well, at festival they say no, but maybe here they could.
Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
So that's just like a policy change.
A policy change and an infrastructure change.
Yeah. I don't know how to get over that. Really, that would be
That
really
got
nice.
worse because of COVID also.
Yep.
They didn't want people breathing on food.
Right.
COVID made it so much worse. I mean, during COVID, it was just like the bakery case went away, and every little cupcake was in its own little clamshell. So, yeah, I would actually, rather than reading through all the different kinds of packaging, well, I can just say this. Obviously, non-plastic recyclable packaging is the next best, and then recyclable plastic packaging, which there is plenty. Like, again, the number 5s. I will collect those number 5s and bring them to a place. And sometimes that just takes having a friend that you know lives in a region. The amount that we use, it's like a grocery bag once a season, maybe, that I have to take to a friend's place in Minneapolis. Are there any other questions more about packaging?
I was thinking about like aspirin or ibuprofen that you buy, a few times a year, and gee, is there another way? Why can't they put it in a paper bag or something?
Right. Right.
Nothing's going to get in, and they're not going to come out.
Right. That actually brings up a really interesting thought. So something like, say, aspirin that's in the plastic
Mhm.
bottle. That plastic bottle might be a number 2 bottle and it recycles just fine. It might be a number 5 bottle that you have to take to a friend
Mhm.
who lives somewhere else. Those are actually okay. They used to come in glass though. It wouldn't be too hard to return to glass for something like that. The thing that really gets me is the blister packs. If you just have like a couple of things, or something that is a gel tablet, it comes in a blister pack.
Yeah.
Those are bad news. There's this company called TerraCycle, and to come back to your chip bag question, TerraCycle has recycling programs for just about anything.
Mhm.
Things that you would never think could be recyclable, like contact lenses or chewing gum. Chewing gum. They recycle it. Yeah, because by the way, there's plastic in chewing gum, unless you're getting the
Oh my God.
stuff at the co-op that it's tasty for about 10 seconds and then it's not. But at least there's not plastic in it. So yeah, there's plastic in chewing gum, and it comes in a plastic package, so it's just win-win. Not. But anyway, TerraCycle will take all of those things for a price. It costs money. It's high-end recycling. It's hard for them to do. So if there's something that you use a lot of, like contact lenses, it might really be worth it to go to TerraCycle. So when you go to TerraCycle, you have to make a little account, but then you're in their system and you can kind of shop through, what do you want to recycle? And you might pay like $80 for a box that you put all your contact lenses and all your little blister packs for your contact lenses can go in there, and then when it's completely full, you ship it off to TerraCycle. Now, there are companies, though, who are actually being responsible, and they are paying TerraCycle to recycle their wrappers. One is the Go Macro bar. They sell these at the co-op. Go Macro is made here in Wisconsin. They're a really good company. Like, they're checking all boxes. They're making a really good product. I think they're using solar and wind. They're local, and they realize that wrapper has Mylar, so they're taking it back and they're recycling it through TerraCycle. So you can go on TerraCycle, look for the product, Go Macro Bar. You'll get a free shipping label that you can just, like, we do this. We actually eat a lot of these. So we will fill a box like this big and put this free shipping label on it and mail it to TerraCycle, and TerraCycle will recycle those on Go Macro's dollar. So another one is Takis. Surprising, because they're absolute crap. My son Jasper just loves these things, and they're like totally garbage, but he's always like, but Mom, TerraCycle. And I'm like, oh, that makes them win? Okay, sure, eat as many as you want. You can recycle the bag. Okay. So yeah, but like, it's kind of interesting who decides to do that. And
so how do we get all of the companies to take it all back?
They have to care.
Like, how do you, like, but maybe there
Can I
needs to be
tell a little story?
force going somewhere.
So back in the 80s, McDonald's switched from paper packaging to styrofoam clamshells, and there was a huge pushback. And this is what people did. They filled up boxes with styrofoam, which doesn't weigh very much, and mailed it to McDonald's corporate headquarters.
Yes.
And now McDonald's has paper packaging.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. That is one of my favorite stories.
I love that story.
Because that just shows how human activism, either boycotting something or like really taking initiative to do something like that, can turn the tables. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is such a great example. And we could do that with so many things.
Like cartons, those shelf-stable cartons are like getting.
Yeah.
You can mail them. There's places.
You're talking about like the aseptic containers?
Yeah, there's like
Yeah. I know. Those,
They're
So-
tricky because they're made of layers of paper and
Mhm.
plastic, and
Yeah.
they're sandwiched
I know.
together.
So
But
you can't
yeah.
recycle them here,
Yeah.
but you can mail them. But I
can.
hope they get recycled. Because again, you're mailing
Yeah.
it off and hoping someone will take
Yeah, and TerraCycle will do some of those. You just have to find out where, and in Hennepin County, they will do them. So you gotta just find somebody who lives in Minneapolis. I know Hennepin County is really good about it. I know this because one of my mentors at Stout lives there, and we kept arguing about this. Like, yes, they'll recycle that. Not here, Wendy. I live in rural Wisconsin. They don't do it here. And yeah, but oh, there was one other thing. Well, anyway, yeah. Oh, I remember another point that this same mentor brought up to me is those aseptic cartons are really, really important for people who live in areas where they don't have any refrigeration. And so that is where some of that, those problems lie. Like there's little single-use soap packets that are really, really popular in, I know in India, and maybe some East Asian countries where they don't have the ability to buy a whole box of like laundry detergent, but they can buy one little packet, and they sell them. If you've ever seen them, they're these long strips of single-use packets, and they just tear it off, and then they can buy it for like
I
pennies.
saw some documentary where they were forced to do that. Like they did not want those single use that has created this
Really,
trash issue. Someone decided they needed those.
well,
and
yeah.
were kind of forced upon them, and so now I guess they have all these like a trash issue with all of them.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like I saw something about. I need to look that
I
up.
can't remember which documentary
Yeah.
or what it was, but it was like it seemed like they did not want single use. They all of a sudden had single use.
Right. That's almost kind of like the concept of a food desert, right? It's like you don't have anywhere that gives you good food, so you have to eat the junk food that's at the whatever little convenience store might be there, the dollar store maybe. I don't know, I know dollar stores do a lot of that. So going beyond plastic, that's where we were gonna kind of open this up. I wrote a lot about plastic for this book because again, I feel like it's a really easy place for us to start, for us to get rid of that mountain of stuff. But there are other things to look into. And like I said, like really the best thing comes down to use less and keep it local. Distilled it down to just that. Because if you use less stuff in the first place, or if you buy better stuff and you take really good care of it, there's no new materials being taken. There's no human beings having to work in a factory job to make that stuff. There's not extra stuff being thrown away into the environment. So just use less in the first place. And then to keep it local, that allows for more of that, like the reused bottles. Or ages ago, I did a class for the traditional green skills group on plastics. And one of the women in my class, she was in her 80s, and she said, "Oh, when I was a kid, they had this company called Charlie Chips, and it was a big metal can of chips, and you'd eat your chips, and when it was empty, you could return it, and then they'd fill it up with chips and sell it again." So this was nothing I have ever heard of before, but really, like, why not do something like that? Because again, chips.
I remember we had a little milk box, and the glass bottles would come, and then you'd put them empties, and then take them home.
Yeah. Which here because our co-op has the glass bottles, I feel really fortunate that we have that option. That is such a great model. And I look at I don't drink cow's milk, so I'm like, can't a nut milk company please, or an oat milk company, like that, the really tasty oat milk that comes in the fun package. Like they seem really good. Or there's the Silk Company. They're a B Corp. I could get into some of that too. You know what a B Corp is? Like they give a certain amount of their profits back to sustainability. I don't have all the words for what a B Corp does, but when I see that, I'm like, okay, you're doing your part. But could they take the next step? They've already gone so far. Could they take the next step and use a returnable bottle or something like that? Not at a nationwide capacity. They can't. So it has to be more local. So probably maybe, somebody in the region, as far as Minneapolis, if they were able to do that, that would really make a huge difference. There is that yogurt that comes in the glass.
Yes. And
but
it's
they don't
good.
Return. They recycle,
yeah.
but they don't return.
Yeah. It's way down on the bottom shelf on the left-hand side.
Yeah, that's why I won't eat yogurt anymore, because I'm like, it's just I'm tired of all the class.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I make it myself? But that's a whole nother issue.
I know. Well, there is a yogurt that comes, I can't remember the name of it, because also a lot of these in glass are a single serving, so there's one that comes in a larger, quart-sized jar, and it's like $10 for, so this is another point. How come only oil barons can afford to, do all the green things?
Because you said it was only 3 cents or what cent for to make it.
Right.
Well, and then there's a balancing act, right, of minimizing food waste, which often uses plastic.
Yeah.
So, yes, I want to minimize food waste. So it's tricky.
There's a really good book that I used for my research here. It's called The Carbon Footprint of Everything.
Nice.
The library has it. I recommend everybody read this book because it blew my mind. The plastic grocery bag has a lower carbon footprint than the food inside it. Even if that food inside it is apples and broccoli and raw almonds. The production of food in the United States at the level that we produce it so that we can fully stock all of our store shelves is just ridiculous. Again, if it was more local. Now, that puts us in a pinch here because we have winter. So, and I know, I am not about to eat only meat and give up avocados like that. My avocados are another guilty pleasure. I know there's bad, but another book that I would recommend is called Frostbite. I did not research this for this book. I listened to it this winter, and it's about the cold food storage worldwide. So cold storage, food storage worldwide is basically, if you take everything, all the refrigerators and all the cold storage warehouses, if you were to pile them all up, it would be a second Mount Everest.
Oh my.
Or a third Arctic region, basically, is what they call it, is the third Arctic.
Wow.
And this is so that the people who make my favorite yogurt in California can get it to me in Wisconsin, all fresh and cold. So, yeah.
All that cooling food is also heating air.
Exactly. And cooling our houses is heating air. So then you've got your giant TV cooking away, adding warmth to your house that then you have to suck out with your air conditioner, and all of it is using electricity and heating the outside air, and so use less. Just use less. How do we solve our electricity problem? It's not going to be building more solar farms or wind farms. It's going to be turning the lights off, turning the TV off. Water heaters, televisions, air conditioners, refrigeration. These are the biggest electricity hogs of them all. I also got like the carbon footprint. That carbon footprint, where is that? Here we go. So the carbon footprint, right? We all know this. Things that use the most fossil fuels and emit the most carbon. Here we've got, gas, that we use in our cars. That's a lot. Electricity, there's a couple toes right there. Emissions. And my carbon footprint, we have farts, but that's not real. So flying airplanes is this big ball of the foot. Food production is that section here. In my world, unicorns is right there. Because it didn't have anything for there. I'm like, how can you not have anything in that space? Anyway, but stuff. Just producing stuff is that big heel. That is the most. So, like Bill Gates' book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, he really breaks it down in that book. And so making stuff, growing stuff, moving stuff, those are the biggest uses of energy.
What about data centers?
Yeah, I don't know that he included data centers.
Because that throws a whole other monkey wrench.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. When Bitcoin was all popular, that's the first time I learned about just how much energy something that's not even real can actually eat up. And now there's data centers. And, that's another use less. We don't need every cat video ever made to last throughout human existence. If they could just put a cap on that and say, your cat video only gets to be up for 5 years, and then we're erasing it. That could eliminate so much. I think this is just opinion. I haven't researched this, but really, I do think that maybe you guys know more about this.
The data centers are like, every time you put in a prompt, especially like image generation for AI, it will fire up a device in the data center.
Okay.
Which is the bigger issue because a lot of people use AI.
Yeah.
So, because every single time you're having a conversation, every line that you put into it is generating heat. And it's generating so much heat that it just dumps water constantly on these devices. So that's why it just decimates local economies.
Wow.
But thankfully, like, ChatGPT and the guy who runs that company is really awful, and he's going bankrupt. So.
Well, and I've heard.
I know there's always going to be a new one, but
Everyone's using Claude Code.
I've heard something recently, though, that there's speculation that there's going to be like an AI bubble.
There's a theoretical AI bubble just being talked about a lot, but it still boils down to don't use it. Like,
yeah,
it's still the same problem and it's still the same solution, but people really like money, so they're gonna just do the thing that makes them money.
And that's a really good point, like, to bring into the whole conversation, is so much of this is because somebody wants to make money off of something.
I took a summer course where I had to write an essay a day for like a whole month on sustainability and like specifically like the global food shed and everything involved in like food transportation, like all the things you're talking about. And you mentioned like Monsanto, and it is pretty atrocious, like what flies under the radar for like public information, and that like demonizing individuals in which we perpetuate their suffering, so that way the 1% can get their money.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awful because it's like baked into like our socio-political culture.
Right.
So you'll have conversations with people who have these like really drastic ideals that are baseless when you really like dig deeper,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to like flip it and be like, okay, so you know this problem, it's because the United States like has this treaty or this law that makes it so that way that we're demonizing these people, but we're also the cause of why they're suffering and why it's now your problem. So, without getting too into the weeds, but that's a topic.
What class was it? Food justice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it with me? Dr. Edminster?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, that was it, yeah. I will say,
You love the class.
Tell me your name because it's online. We don't see each other.
My name's RJ, but
Great.
yeah,
So great.
that was like, that was legitimately one of the most like interesting classes I've ever taken. So.
Well, the whole online experience didn't cost any gasoline,
Yeah.
didn't pollute the air as much as, I mean, some energy from kilowatts, or might or smaller watts.
Yeah.
And the production of the computers themselves, and then the disposal of those, and the transportation of them, and then also the data centers that are housing all of these things, like where all of that information lives. Like the web isn't a web and the cloud isn't a cloud, right? It's all a place that has a bajillion computers and air conditioners. So I love virtual. I love the fact that I don't have to drive to work every day. But it also has a cost.
You said something about like paper being another big planned filler. So like, what's the trade-off for like digital versus paper? Or exactly like what is like the biggest contributors to paper? Because like I just think about the ads I get in my mailbox. I'm like, why I didn't ask for approval for this credit card, thanks though.
Yeah. Well, that needs to stop. First of all, we should only be sent stuff that we want.
Yeah.
And second of all, we should recycle paper. It's the easiest thing to recycle. It's like, it's just...
You just put it in the bin.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just because we took a class on this, like, what is your feedback for this whole for Brianna's book and how it's
Yeah, I mean, I love Brianna's book, and Brianna came and taught her book in another class of mine. Well, I mean, there's so much that I could say about this, and I appreciate work so much. One of the things I wanted to say about AI that's interesting on a local level is the hidden use of AI, for example, it's like doubly disruptive. So, for example, and a lot of people don't know this, including my colleagues, that the Workday, which is the human resources platform we now use at Stout, it's AI powered. So it's like the people who write my contract don't even have like access to the same information they used to. So when I had problems with things, like we can't get in there, we don't know how to do this. And it's like, okay, so somebody lost a job or is being forced to do even more with less. And this is using energy as AI. So I feel like that's the goal. It's kind of like the harm reduction. Maybe like the cat videos for me would be like maybe less harm than do we really need to say, where's the closest taquitos location or whatever in your phones, unless you have an impairment, right? But then the AI use for things that really actively mean we're losing jobs. Think about like graphic design or writers or artists or, right? And a lot of times we don't know about it. So second point, thank you for opening this can of worms, which was actually, I'm wondering if we could all we could draft a quick letter, and I'm not joking, out if you have a piece of paper or Anna, if we can use your computer, to the co-op, and all sign it seriously about the clamshells. It's really there's 10 people, there's 12 people in this room. It's not just you. It makes me want to make sure we're all saying this. We want reasons in bulk that we can access with our own jar. You know?
Yep. That is a really good. Having those numbers.
Getting into my Google.
Having those numbers. Yeah. That's really great. You know, a lot of the time out here, we tend to isolate, and we live really rural, and I forget that I have a community sometimes, and it takes something like this to come together. Some of the work I'm doing now is really focusing on sustainability as a whole lifestyle. And, when I started really thinking about how to approach this next project, I started by looking at Maslow's hierarchy. And I was like, okay, well, obviously we need food and shelter. How do I approach sustainability when I'm thinking of food, when I'm thinking of shelter? And then further up, community, and then creativity. And so I've broken it out into how I live kind of by season and what I do. And like when we're looking at food, it's wild foraging, gardening, going to the farmer's market, going to the co-op, knowing your farmer, just knowing your farmer. There's more in depth there, but then, community and the co-op, that all goes together. Like having a community of like-minded individuals inspires us, and it makes us feel like we're included, and it gives us strength. And one of the things RJ was talking about, he was talking about like the humanitarian aspect of like when he was it the food shed that he was talking about, or regardless. It made me think of that is one of the, if you look at the triple bottom line, you're looking at people, what is it, people, profit, and I don't know what the other P is, but you have to throw people in there. You can't just be like, I am going to only, do this. This is how I'm going to approach sustainability, and then some other human group becomes burdened because, I'm only going to use this one. You got to think into all of those things. And again, every time it comes down to use less, keep it local. So I just think that the globalization of this consumer capitalist model, the globalization is what really got us down the wrong track. The fact that people can outsource to, less industrialized countries, get stuff cheap. The story of Evermore, I read to your class. You guys want a little story?
Yes.
Want a little fun story? Let's see. Okay, this will go fast. Once upon a time, in the land of Evermore, magical junk fairies would bring people all the cruddy plastic trinkets they could wish for. The junk fairies would load their enchanted cargo ships to near bursting, and sometimes they did burst, hurling their squeaky, twinkling contents into the sea. After unloading all their plastic treasures to the people of Evermore, the junk fairies graciously filled their empty ships with the used, broken, and unfashionable plastic detritus the people wanted to get rid of, and sailed back to the land of far away. The junk fairies promised the people of Evermore that they were doing the right thing, and their nasty old trash would be magically transformed into marvelously fashionable new stuff. And even though much of it ended up in a gorge somewhere, most of it was transformed into cool new stuff, until it wasn't, and the junk fairies quit taking all the people's trash, and it just piled up everywhere instead at the end. And that's a true story. That is China. Remember when China would ship us all of our wonderful swag and straws and sauce packets, and then we shipped them all of our recycling, and they were like, oh, we're going to recycle it for you, and instead it filled up a gorge. And then the gorge was full, and they were like, oh, we don't want to take this anymore. You suck. Whatever.
So are they using like virgin cardboard?
I don't know about cardboard. I was just talking about plastic. I know that they were doing this with plastic. So yeah, if it was cardboard, I'm sure same thing. Now one of the great things is how so much of our used clothes that we want to we bring it to Savers. Well, they truck it to Ghana or Kenya, and it just becomes this mountain. And that stuff, as it starts to,
destroys local textile culture.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's polluting, and it creates methane. And it's like they can't, there's no way for them to use all of that stuff. So now some bright spots, there are companies like Patagonia is recycling a lot of textiles. The dark side of Patagonia is, how do they have a right to charge $500 for a coat? No, they do not have a right to charge $500 for a coat. I don't care how cool and hip your company is. Lower the price. It's not fair to humans. Everybody should be able to have a good coat made out of recycled down and recycled nylon. Like, if you live off food stamps, you still deserve to have a good coat. So that's a different soapbox. But seriously, yeah, they're doing a good thing. There is also another light at the end of the tunnel. Is there's something called there's a process by which you can mine plastic out of a landfill, right? And it can be recycled. I think, is it Iceland that has done this to the point, and they are using that mined plastic then. There's a process. You could actually do this process in your own garage. It takes some chemicals, but you can take plastic bottles, you can melt them down and make a liquid fuel that you can then use to heat your house or whatever. Anyway, apparently Iceland, I think it's Iceland, did this to the point where they don't have any plastic now, and they are buying it from other countries. So things can be done.
I think it's Copenhagen that has its local community incinerators, so they incinerate a lot of things they can't recycle or.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, like,
They
oh,
eat
but
all
what
the
about
houses in the neighborhood?
right?
Yeah.
What about the emissions, though? They have scrubbers
They have
Yeah.
figured out
that
yes,
clean the
much-
emissions. So yeah, it can be done. And yeah, those countries also, by the way, have healthcare and education that are paid for by the government.
And gender
Kind of-
pay equity.
And gender pay
And gender pay.
Yes. Oh,
Nice.
yeah. And is that, and then childcare. Childcare.
They're not late stage capitalist.
Right. Well, they're, you know what? It's okay. That brings me to another book I've written. Here we have isms. And
Speaking of capitalism.
speaking of ism, capitalism, yeah. I wrote this because of all the discussion about things like socialism and communism and what are those? And the words get thrown around a lot, sometimes incorrectly. So I decided to go to the dictionary and just write exactly, there's no opinion in here. This is not my words. This is straight out of the dictionary. I just did the pictures.
I do want to say that the pictures have a little bit of opinion.
A little bit. Well, what I was going for when I started this, I really started with communism, and I wanted to look at propaganda posters. So I literally went online and found propaganda posters, and these were like from, communist Russia, only they had like shovel and a hammer, and I decided to use animals. And I use animals in a lot of my work because something about anthropomorphizing animals and putting them in this scenario kind of can help us look at what we do as humans and be like, yeah, that's ridiculous what we're doing. And in my plastic book, I use animals for that, and also to show that we're creating the problem and the animals are paying the price. So it sort of serves to be like, I've got a turtle with a straw in his nose and a duck with a six-pack ring around his neck. And those characters are in there specifically to illustrate, like, hey, these guys are suffering and it's on us. So what are we going to do about it? So.
And they're cute and funny.
They are cute and funny
Which helps
because,
us, like,
yeah.
metabolize what you're putting down.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That is also a really important reason why I make it a comic book. Also, I really like drawing a lot, and it wasn't going to be a children's book. It's too much. Even The Land of Evermore, I don't think kids would really like that much. So yeah, something about the animals and the little jabs of humor, like "What's up, swag?" You know, stuff like that. That's sort of my little brand of dark humor, but also I feel like it can bring the reader in, make them feel included, make this feel a little less overwhelming. My friend Jess used the word levity when she talked about it, and I feel like levity is definitely, because this can feel so heavy, so it lightens it up to make it a comic book. So I think we're probably at time, but I would like to read for you just my takeaway. This is like kind of at the end of the book, it's like information distilled. So like I've been saying, number one, buy less stuff, period. The biggest problem we face in this environmental crisis is that people are addicted to stuff. Making stuff means taking resources, destroying habitats, using people for cheap labor, and creating an exponentially growing torrent of waste. We must all quit buying so much stuff. That is number one. Can't buy your way out of a climate crisis, even if you're buying stuff that's not plastic. Think about how much less you can have. Go buy my book. God, it's made with recycled paper, I promise. But because we still need to buy some stuff, like books, buy better stuff. Buying less means you have more money to buy better things. And buy only what you need. While this seems obvious, we can all take a good look at what we buy and ask, do I really need this? Does my moment of gratification really justify this chip bag sitting around for a couple hundred years? You can tell I talk a lot about chips.
It does, by the way, chips.
Yeah, they're so good. I don't want to make them myself. Wow. Okay, 4, buy locally. Seriously, Walmart is not local. It is the epitome of all that is wrong with modern capitalism. Walmart supplies the cheapest stuff they can legally sell. They don't care about the local economy, the environment, or humans. I pick on Walmart, but Target, Home Depot, Fleet Farm, Menards, Kohl's, and of course Amazon are all the same. They are the biggest part of the problem. And finally, buy secondhand stuff. Secondhand, thrift shop, antique, whatever you want to call it. Old stuff is cool. Secondhand and antique stores are full of gently used household items, toys and clothes that are not plastic. So buying used stuff means you can happily check all the boxes. No new materials were taken from the earth. No human beings were exploited for their labor. There have not been more production wastes created. The item itself has not gone into the waste stream. You can support the local economy, especially if it's an independent thrift or antique store. And you can support charities that help underprivileged communities, so like Goodwill, Savers, or Salvation Army. So that's my takeaway. That is how we can all really... And one other thing I would add is make your own stuff and take really, really good care of your stuff and fix your stuff. I didn't add that to this, but it should be in there. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's hard to
And-
cram it into an hour.
Right, and tomorrow is our last and final environmental series, so it's about the Landmark Conservancy. So
Cool.
tomorrow at 6.
Nice.
So thank you so much.
Thanks for squeezing me in on Earth Day. I really wanted to be here today for this, so I really appreciate it.